Okay, we'll move on to the next question from the audience. The council recently voted to move a fraternity house from East Greenville to West Greenville. Is this helping improve the quality of life for citizens in West Greenville? And we'll start with you, Mr. Anderson.
Does it improve the quality of life in West Greenville? No. This was a deal that was done to facilitate an individual for building a certain complex, but it does not help the citizens of West Greenville because they're putting it over there because they know that for a fact that most people won't complain that there's a fraternity house in their area. But no, it is not helping the citizens of West Greenville.
This was a complicated issue that the council faced, and the decision was finally made that the advantages are worth the whatever the cost or deficits might be. I serve at large. I serve every citizen of the city, and I try to do what's good for everyone. I do, when there is something in a particular district, I do certainly listen to the person in that district and consider, what their considerations. My understanding, and I think I'm safe in saying this, that Councilmember Smith supported this, Councilmember Glover supported this, and that did weigh into my decision. It was not one of the easy votes that I took, but it was complicated. But there is going to be, I think it's $100,000 that will be used to improve things in West Greenville, and that was a calculation that was a part of the calculation.
Okay, our next question. The City of Greenville invested in the Tar River Legacy Study. How would you implement the recommendation of this study in a timely manner?
I have to go back and look at the study. I haven't read the whole thing, so I can't say how I implemented it in a timely manner. Probably Mr. Mercer has more to talk about this.
I have read every word of it. It's a very important study. As some people know, I voted against it because we have the study, and certainly we want to use it and implement it. I felt that we had had enough studies, and I felt that the money that was going into that study could be used to actually do some things on the Tar River that we already knew needed to be done. I mean, we didn't need a study to tell us that, but I was outvoted on that. By the way, that was not not one of your neat 4-2 votes. It was another example of not the 4-2 block voting. Anyway, we have the study. Now that we have the study, I'm on board, and let's try to do everything we can to implement it. And I think that the Tar River is a vastly underused resource that we have in our city. This council has already worked to start doing some things down at the boat ramp and so on. And so there are things that are unfolding from that plan. Certainly we're not doing it as fast as I would like to, but we are working to implement that plan.
City council manager form of government, should the mayor or individual council member call on city staff to say, put in speed bumps or execute architectural drawings showing to hotels on the town common or any such issues if they were never addressed by the council as a whole?
I'm going to reserve my time because I want to hear the question again. I want to hear that list again.
In the city council manager form of government, should the mayor or any individual council member call on city staff to put in speed bumps or execute architectural drawings showing hotels on the town common when such issues were never addressed by council as a whole?
No, none of the issues you mentioned should be done by the. Look, can you imagine how disruptive it would be if a member of the ECU Board of Trustees bypassed the chancellor, bypassed the provost, bypassed Coach Ruffin, and went down to the offensive coach and said, I want you to run this offensive play? That is a recipe for disaster. And I have strong feelings about this. And I think it has probably a direct relationship to the loss of staff, the unprecedented loss of staff in 2012, starting with widely respected city manager, Wayne Bowers. And I think if we don't respect the council manager form of government, the council sets policy and we hire a manager to implement the policy. And if in any city with the council manager form of government, a mayor or council members walks up and down the hall of City Hall and tells department heads what to do or staff what to do, it demoralizes staff. It is unfair to the other council members who are sitting up there and who were elected to set policy and who are following the rules.
Mr. Anderson?
I have to agree. I don't believe in micromanaging any of the city manager, and but also keeping in mind if there is a concern that a citizen is bringing up, that I bring it to the council and make sure that we discuss it. And the city manager's there at every meeting, so she's there and she's listening to the concerns of the citizens that are bringing that up. Because I don't think an actual individual councilman was doing that, but shouldn't be doing that at least. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. No local governmental monies were spent on the new homeless shelter in Greenville. In my opinion, homelessness affects all citizens in many ways, socioeconomic, crime, and basic moral standard. Do you think anything should be done to help end homelessness within our city? And Mr. Anderson, start.
Sure. I think this is a two-pronged attack on this, that we have to make sure that we're helping the citizens of Greenville that are homeless right now, so that is increasing funds to the homeless shelter and making sure that they have everything that they possibly need, because it affects all residents of Greenville. We do not want to see panhandlers on the sidewalks. We do not want to see them in front of street corners. We want to see people doing good paying jobs. And that's the second prong, is going after those companies and businesses that we can actually pull jobs in, and making sure that we're not saying, hey, you can't build this Red Robin here because it doesn't pay enough money. We need to have as many jobs as we possibly can and have these people going from being part-time workers to full-time workers, and making sure that they're living that American dream by having a family and having a house here and staying here, hopefully for their entire lifetime, and raising kids, and hopefully they stay here in Greenville, because we have a lot to offer and we want them here. Thank you.
Mr. Mercer?
Well, I'm so proud of the new shelter called Crossroads, and I worked as a private citizen as best I could to help them raise the money. And I'm so pleased that the community stepped up. It's a great testimony of this community, how they stepped up to help fund that. My wife and I, through our church for a year, served meals at the old homeless shelter, and I can tell you there is quite a difference. And Erik is exactly right. We don't just need to house homeless people, but if you talk to the people who are running the shelter, they have programs in place to help integrate those people back into the community, into the workforce. And so that's exactly the kind of approach that we need to take. And so I'm just as proud as I can be of this community for stepping up and doing that. I mean, we need to celebrate. Look, there's plenty, campaigns by nature have us talk about our differences, and that's unfortunate. But that's the context we're in. And so we certainly need to celebrate those times when we all work together as a community. And I mean, that's really what I want.
Okay. Mr. Mercer, how does the city promote transparency?
Well, one way to promote transparency is to making sure is for the citizens to hold their elected officials to make sure they don't walk up and down the halls of City Hall and tell staff what to do when nobody's listening. You need to do it in front of a microphone with the cameras on and conduct the public business in public. That's one thing you need to do. And I am a strong advocate of that. As you know, I'm an old newspaper person. I worked my way through college working at a newspaper, and I totally believe in the public, the state open meetings law and public information laws, and I'm absolutely supportive of transparency. I try to do that myself. When there's a complicated vote on the council, I try to explain exactly why I'm voting the way I'm voting, and I try to explain that in my newsletter. So those are the things I do to try to promote transparency.
Okay, again, we agree on this. Hopefully it's not being go out there and try to make people do what they want, do what I want them to do. I hope that's not being said right now, because I'm not that way in any of the management positions that I've ever been in here in Greenville, which is a lot, and throughout the Marine Corps. But a way to transparent is making sure that we don't have political action committees that start up here in Greenville, and because it's an arms race. You spend $30,000 here, then they spend $30,000, then $45,000, then $90,000, and things get pushed under the rug that shouldn't be pushed under the rug. Now, I totally agree with Mr. Mercer's newsletter. I think that's a great idea. I've always thought that that was a great idea. It's a way to keep citizens informed. We have to do more of that. We have to make sure we're going out to the papers, making sure that the Daily Reflector is covering all this stuff. And it might be boring to a lot of people because the meetings do last between 4 and 6 hours, but making sure that a lot of you are watching on TV if you've missed it, but making sure that we're continuing that and not holding private meetings. Thank you.
Okay, I want to sneak in 2 more questions before closing statements. 2015 poll conducted by CBS News New York Times indicates most Americans believe race relations in this country are tenuous. Further, the poll also suggests 40% of blacks and whites believe race relations are deteriorating. In Greenville, the exponential growth of diverse cultures and ethnicities challenge traditional views, creating friction that lead to social tension. What are your plans to create and sustain a healthy, inclusive community, Mr. Mercer?
First of all, since Erik's brought it up several times, Political Action Committee is simply a way for a broad group of citizens who have common ideas and want to support certain candidates to get together. It's a smart thing for them to do. And I'm happy to be endorsed by smart people. And I see no problem with the groups of people getting together and being smart about how they're supporting their candidates. What's wrong with that? It's a free country. Now, as far as race relations, I am very, very sad to hear polls like this. I do not dispute them. I think there are things we do on the council. I don't have time to list them. I think we also all personally have to get involved. We have to. My wife and I do this through her youth group and visiting Miss Lucille Gorham and working with the Little Willie Center in joint projects. So I think we all have to look at in our own soul. We have to do what we can do personally, and then out of that set of values, we support policies and programs that perhaps will address this. It's very sad to have that poll, and we have to keep working at it. We can't just hear it and do nothing.
I think we have to do more community engagement. All of us need to get out there and walk the pavement more and more and more. You can never do more. Honestly, you have to walk that pavement. You have to see where they're living. You have to see where everybody in Greenville is living, and not make sure that you build an overpass right over there and just totally avoid everybody on that side of the tracks. But you have to do this. I've served several Thanksgivings. I go down to the Little Willie Center. We serve Thanksgiving dinner. That's something I love to do when we're not working. My wife and I, we work a lot of Black Friday, so that's something that now we started working on Thanksgiving Day, which I hate, but we can't pass the law that says we can't work on that day. But making sure that you're engaged in the community, making sure that you're doing everything you possibly can be doing, making sure you're walking, making sure you're going out, checking on your citizens, making sure you're asking the needs of the community. Thank you.
Okay, last question before closing statements. And gentlemen, thank you for your patience. And we'll start with Mr. Anderson. What is the greatest challenge do you see facing Greenville and Eastern North Carolina?
Well, the greatest challenge is jobs. I mean, that's really it in a nutshell. A lot of people are living below the poverty line, and a lot of people need to make sure that they have that financial backing that they can buy things like houses and cars, and making sure that the economy is going around, making sure that they're getting paid at a higher wage, making sure that the city council members aren't standing in the way of businesses being brought here, and making sure that we're soliciting those businesses coming here, bringing back manufacturing jobs, making sure that we're listening to the citizens, all citizens of Greenville, not just a select few, making sure that we're going into the neighborhoods that maybe we don't always go into. I myself live in a highly diverse neighborhood, and I love living there, and I'm to the community, making sure we're being engaged, and making sure that people actually have jobs that they can afford to feed their families and have enough disposable income that they can buy certain goods that our economy will allow.
I came on the council in 2007 and 2008. We had a great national recession. Of course, I hope no one blames me for the national recession, but it was a hard time to be on the council. If I was going to pick a decade to be on the council, that was a bad one to pick. But coming, and I, we worked hard during that time to do the kinds of things we needed to do, and the city is pulling out of that along with the nation, not fast as we want, of course, but given that context, even though we've made a lot of progress, I would say I can't disagree that jobs, good jobs, jobs of all levels are certainly a very important, maybe the number one thing that we need, and of course that's related, of course, to building a kind of city that will recruit the companies that can bring those jobs.
Now we're ready for closing statements, Mr. Mercer.
I started out. You want me to go first? No, it doesn't.
Thank you again for the Daily Reflector putting this event on. Thank everyone for coming out and being engaged. And if you're watching on home, I hope you check us both out and see what our records are and see what our websites consist of, because we have a lot of good information. The two of us are very well skilled and good orators on our websites and newsletters. So come look at my website, electerekanderson.com, and you could go on to Facebook and look at there. Those are two great options. It's all out there, folks. We try to be as transparent as possible, and that leads to good governance. So make sure that we're all keep being engaged, and I hope you come out and vote and do your civic duties, and thank you so much for coming here tonight, because that really shows that you guys care about your community and care about what we're talking about on the council, so that we don't have decisions that are made that a select group only have or a select group that don't have. So making sure that we're being transparent and making sure that we're engaged in our communities, making sure that we're laser pointed at those select jobs and making sure that we're going after manufacturing jobs, as well as, at every level, like we talked about, every single level of paying jobs, not just jobs that college educated, but making sure that all of our citizens have a chance to move up in their economic scale. So thank you so much for coming out here tonight, and I appreciate everybody watching on TV and everybody in the audience, and I'm glad that you all came out tonight. Thank you very much.
I want to thank Erik. Erik has been a good debate partner, and I know Erik. He's got a good heart, and he's been a good debate partner, and I appreciate that very much. I do want to do one quick fact check before I make my closing comment, and that is, Erik said in the paper that the council raised its own salaries, and he disagreed with that. I just want to fact check that. There was a last minute, several years ago, after the public hearing, after months of budget discussions, a last-minute pay raise that was put through. Neither the mayor nor any other council member spoke against it nor voted against it except for me. I cannot believe they did that, and I voted against it, and it outraged the citizens of Greenville. A last-minute, no public input pay raise for the mayor and council members. So a fact check on that. That's not me. There is a lot at stake in this election. And in my meets and greets around the city and talking with people, one of the things that they're concerned about is the rolling back of the three unrelated. This was pushed through by a narrow special interest, and it was that previous council's solid 4-2 vote that made that happen. And I am very pleased to have been, after the last election, a part of a loose coalition that rolled that back. Mr. Anderson said in a debate that he did not think the city should be limiting the number of unrelated people living in a rental home. In fairness to him, he also said he didn't think this should be come back up. However, if a certain mindset gets on the council, I worry about this issue for other neighborhoods in our city. So that's a concern I have. There are other at-stake issues here, but I don't have time to go into them. I'll just say if you return me to this position, I'll do my very level best to bring fair, objective, transparent, and civil, respective discourse to the issues of this city. I'll do everything I can to continue to be responsive and provide trustworthy government for you. Thank you. It's an honor.
Thanks again to everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you to the candidates there, to be commended for their willingness to run and all they do to help create an informed electorate. To learn more, please visit their websites. They work hard to get out. They make themselves available. Ask them questions, send them an email. Please continue to read the Daily Reflector and the other sources that are available to you. There will be a video of this event on our website sometime tomorrow or the next day. There is also a video of the mayor's debate that we had a week ago on the website.
Watch out, she'll give you the time there.
That's okay. Please tell everybody what you learned tonight and encourage your family and friends to study the issues and get out and vote. Early voting starts tomorrow, continues through October 31st, and on Election Day, November 3rd. Thanks very much for coming out.